This is the greatest day of my life in baseball.
Everybody works so hard all year long. I love them. This is the only place to be.
I used to say, hey, if you want to get to heaven, you got to go through Dodger Stadium.
It's hard to imagine the Dodgers without Tommy Lasorda. We want to welcome you to this very special edition of the Sports Final. As we fondly remember the life and career of the legendary Tommy Lasorda, I'm Darren Horton, joined by our very own Steve Hartman. There are so many memories. What a legacy. He lived a full life. Steve, your initial thoughts when you heard the news about Tommy?
You know, I know that Tommy was 93, and he had an incredibly long life, but it's still hard to believe that he's gone. I mean, Lasorda has been such a presence for the Dodgers, for the city of Los Angeles, that even though you knew this day eventually would come, the stark reality that it has come is a little hard to imagine. And it's that kind of impact that Tommy had. You can't separate the Dodgers from Tommy Lasorda. Mm-hmm. You can't separate this city from Tommy Lasorda. His impact will simply be remembered forever.
He was always the bridge from the past to the present, and we loved seeing him around. Lasorda passed away at home last night after suffering a heart attack. He had been ill, having spent the past few months hospitalized. Very few had taken the kind of impact he did on this city. And it's safe to say he was an original, the one who loved nothing more than being a part of the Dodger family. He was brash and beloved, irreverent and amusing. During an historic journey that began in Brooklyn and took flight in Los Angeles, he became not only the face, but more importantly, the humanity of a proud franchise. And alongside good friend Vin Scully, was instrumental in transforming the organization into a Los Angeles institution. Tommy, as he preferred to be called, wasn't destined to be a great player. Drafted as a pitcher by the Phillies, the bow-legged lefty toiled for most of the 1950s in the minors, including several for the Dodgers. At one point, joking it took the emerging brilliance of Sandy Koufax to keep him off the pro roster. He did get one major league start, 1955 in Brooklyn. Lasorda was yanked after one inning when he tied a major league record with 3 wild pitches. He bowed to reality. In 1961, started scouting, which soon led to managing, making stops at every level before the Dodgers' legendary manager Walter Alston elevated him to his staff as third base coach in 1973. 3 years later, Alston retired. Lasorda was named to replace him and inherited a team loaded with talent, many of whom he had managed to a AAA title in Albuquerque only 4 years earlier. But where Alston had been reserved and cerebral, Lasorda was boisterous and certainly not risk-averse.
And look who's coming up. And with 2 out, you talk about a roll of the dice. This is it.
Over the next 20 years, the energetic Lasorda carved out his own blue-first persona, one that included enthusiasm and a can-do spirit that became infectious not only within the clubhouse, but for the rapidly growing fan base. He would also solidify his own managerial legacy with 2 world championships, 4 National League pennants, and 8 division titles.
Nobody thought we could win a division. Nobody thought we could beat the Mighty Mets. Nobody thought we could beat the team who won 104 games. Nobody believed it.
In 1996, a heart attack forced him to retire, a premature departing that wounded no one more than Lasorda himself, though the team was in no way ready to let him walk, naming him vice president and special assistant to the owner. In 1997, he entered Cooperstown, but was never far from his roots. In 2001, he served as an honorary coach at the All-Star Game, where he took a now famous tumble, avoiding the flying bat of Vladimir Guerrero. As always, he handled it with a healthy measure of Lasorda aplomb. Over the last few years, he might have slowed down somewhat, but continued to mesmerize anyone he met with his affection for baseball and, of course, his Dodgers. there was a unique and symbiotic partnership, one that will be missed, though not nearly as much as the man himself. Tommy Lasorda taught us it was okay to love the game as much as he did, one of the many gifts he left. Yeah, Tommy lived a very full life, highlighted by numerous accomplishments. 20 seasons as Dodger manager, guided the franchise to 2 World Series titles, was twice named the NL Manager of the Year, inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1997, and managed Team USA to a gold medal in the 2000 Summer Olympics. And from Dodger Hall of Fame broadcaster Vin Scully, he said, there are 2 things about Tommy I will always remember. The first is his boundless enthusiasm. The other was his determination, his competitive spirit, and above all, this boundless energy and self-belief. His heart was bigger than his talent. There were no foul lines for his enthusiasm. And keep in mind, Scully, dealing with his own loss, his wife Sandy, died last weekend. Today, while graciously remembering his old friend, he also expressed gratitude for the outpouring of support, admitting the past few days have been quite a lot to bear for him. Steve, there are so many layers to Tommy: his love of the game, his ability as a motivator. He was a tremendous ambassador for baseball, but as a person, his charisma, his energy preceded him. He had a presence, but you know, he never big-timed anybody. I mean, if you saw him on the street, he made time for you. It said a lot about who he was as a person.
Darren, for people like you and I that have been in this city a long time and had many encounters with Tommy over the years, I mean, we could sit here all night long and tell Tommy Lasorda stories. My favorite stories about Tommy usually were some kind of interaction with my kids. You know, I had a few occasions where I was able to have my kids introduced to Tommy, especially when they were much younger. And, you know, the way Tommy was always interacting with kids was always classic. Like, you might be handed a baseball, okay, and ask him for an autograph, but he wasn't into that. He wanted life lessons, you know, like he would ask my boys, like, who feeds you? Mom. Who puts clothes on your back? And he goes, I want you to appreciate your parents. I mean, you do this. Of course, they're looking at me like, who is this guy? And then he would talk about handshakes. Handshakes are a big thing for Tommy, right? I want you to really learn how to shake a hand. I mean, he would take the time. And he did this not just for my kids. I mean, he did this for all kids. I mean, he was the one that would make that impression and make his time with them count. And that's what really set Tommy apart. When we talk about what Vin Scully said about his enthusiasm, never left him. And it was always amazing, even in recent years, Darren, he was still traveling to Asia. I mean, he was still traveling the world, not just as an ambassador for the Dodgers, but also really as an ambassador for baseball. That is his greatest contribution to the game. The greatest ambassador for the game of baseball, I think, of all time. Yeah, he certainly was. Dodger owner and chairman Mark Walters said in a statement, he was a great ambassador for the team and baseball, a mentor to players and coaches. He always had time for an autograph and a story for his many fans, and he was a good friend. He will dearly be missed. And for more reflections on the life of Tommy Lasorda, we welcome in Rashawn Haylock, who has been talking with many of Tommy's contemporaries today. He joins us live from Dodger Stadium. Rashawn.
Yeah, Darren, we've heard so much today about Tommy Lasorda's grit and his toughness, and that really bled through into his teams. When you think about all of his championship ball clubs, 1981, that Dodger squad falling behind to the Yankees 2-0 in the Fall Classic. 88, not supposed to have a chance against that juggernaut Oakland A's team. We all remember Vin's call, right? In the year of the improbable, the impossible has happened. And then you fast forward to the 2000 Olympics, Team USA wasn't supposed to have a shot against Team Cuba, but all of those squads collectively, Tommy instilled a belief and a will to win into those guys that willed them to great things.
There are no boundaries to his will. He willed himself to live this long and to watch that world championship. He willed himself to stay active with baseball and to be impactful on a daily basis. So he's impacted us all in so many ways, the LA community, the baseball family, all of the world of baseball. But I believe Tommy Lasorda had no boundaries. On a daily basis, there were no boundaries to something positive, something about winning that he could do.
He just let anyone know the importance of putting on this Dodger uniform and what it means to be a part of this organization. It's our job now going forward to make sure his legacy continues to live on. And it encompasses a lot to be a Dodger. And no one exemplified that more than Tommy.
The wake for Tommy, if these were normal times, we have a wake, it would be the funniest event of all time, because we all have our stories. He loved to have fun. He loved to make fun of himself. He really loved to make fun of other people. And every one of us has our own phenomenal memories.
And from that belief Tommy instilled into his teams, a bond was formed. Hershiser recalling a story earlier today where he was called into Lasorda's office. He thought he was going to get sent down. Instead, from that meeting, the nickname Bulldog was formed. And also how Tommy would write letters to his players during the offseason. For one Steve Garvey, that bond was formed instantly.
Tommy was bigger than life. I first met him when I signed with the Dodgers, and they sent me to Ogden, Utah. There was this fellow holding court with about 6 or 8 guys looked like my age, and he turned around and he said, "You must be Steve Garvey." And I went, "Yes, sir." He says, "Son, your life's changed forever." And my life changed forever, as did all the young men there. And down deep, he was not more than a manager. He was a mentor. He was a teacher. And for me, he was a second father.
And I think what's amazing with Tommy's passing, how many times does somebody pass away, somebody so high profile, yet how many people in this world have a personal Tommy Lasorda story? He was just the man of the people.
And Darren, Steve, will have much more later on in the show tonight as some of those folks you just heard from share their favorite Tommy Lasorda memories. We'll send it back to you in the studio for now.
All right, Rashawn, thank you very much. As we continue to remember the life of the great Tommy Lasorda, just ahead we'll reflect upon his baseball accomplishments. More from the Dodger family as we continue to pay tribute to this Los Angeles icon, the legendary Tommy Lasorda.
When I die, I want my wife to put the Dodger home schedule on this tombstone. And when the people are in the cemetery visiting their loved ones, they'll say, "Let's go to Lasorda's grave to find out if the Dodgers are playing at home or on the road."
Everybody works so hard all year long. I love them. This is the only place to be.
Welcome back. Many current Dodgers took to social media today to pay their respects to Tommy Lasorda. Clayton Kershaw writing thankful for the time we had together and most thankful that he could be here to see us win the whole thing. Justin Turner wrote, "I couldn't be more proud to know that he got to see the Dodgers on top again, where he knew we belonged." And Kenley Jansen saying, "Tommy Lasorda, Hall of Famer in baseball and in life, to win, to love this game, to live and play with joy was his message to us. Rest in peace in blue heaven." Back here in studio with Steve Hartman, we talk about his colorful personality, his enthusiasm, his passion. He was also a tactician of the game. He was known to manage aggressively. Obviously, his legacy is going to be tied to that '88 World Series, that gamble, if you will, to pinch hit Gibby.
Well, this is the thing about Lasorda. I think because of his personality overshadowed just how good a manager he is. And I will say this. I said this, I said it in 1988, I'm saying it in 2021. Him winning that World Series in 1988 with that Dodger team is the single greatest managerial job in the history of baseball. This was a team coming out back-to-back 73 and 89 seasons. They had Orel Hershiser, they had Kirk Gibson, and they had a bunch of guys. And for them to beat two mega star teams, the Mets in the National League Championship Series, and then this Oakland A's team in the World Series.
A team that won 104 games, Steve.
I said at the time, and you'd have to be a bit of a history person, the '88 Dodgers made the '69 Mets look like the '27 Yankees. I mean, that was arguably the least talented team ever to win a World Series, especially considering who they beat. That was the crowning achievement of Tommy Lasorda's managerial career. And I will say right now, I argue anyone to come up with a better argument for a single season managerial job than Lasorda did with those 88 Dodgers. You could just say he pushed the right buttons. Obviously, he brings up Kirk Gibson when no one would have brought him out there. I was fortunate enough to be sitting in the stands of that game, but I think it sort of gets lost because of his personality and everything else. Tommy Lasorda earned his way into the Hall of Fame by being one of the great managers of the game.
How about his ability to handle pitching?
Well, he was a pitcher himself, and he was tough with his pitchers. You know, I don't think he was very big on the, where we are with analytics now, because, when Fernando first came up in the early 80s, he's throwing that screwball, it's taxing his arm, but he just kept him out there. Game 3 of the 81 World Series, they're down 2-0. He's got Fernando on the mound. Fernando's struggling. He wouldn't take him out. They came out, pulled out that game. Fernando threw like 150 pitches in that game, but it started off that 4-game winning streak to win his first World Series. So, he asked a lot of his players, and they loved him so much, they gave him everything that he asked for.
Yeah, he made them believe that they could deliver a lot.
Did that with Hershiser, named him the Bulldog. Does he look like a bulldog? But he believed it.
He pitched like one. Up next, those who knew him best share some of their favorite Tommy stories. Stay with us.
This is the greatest thing that ever happened to me in my lifetime. The Hall of Fame is eternity. I am living a dream. Thank you.
Looking up at the big Dodger in the sky and saying, thank you for allowing me to play here in Dodger Stadium.
If I could have seen God and wrote down on a piece of paper, had written down on a piece of paper what kind of life I would like to have, he couldn't have given me a better one than I got.
Welcome back. Welcome back. The tributes continue to pour in for Tommy Lasorda at Dodger Stadium. His number 2 was painted on the field, and flowers adorn his usual seat in the owner's box and his retired number outside the stadium. The Dodgers also held a moment of silence for Lasorda before tonight's game at Staples Center. And before we tell our favorite stories about Tommy, those in the Dodger organization were around him all these years. They had plenty to tell themselves. So Rashawn Haylock joins us once again from Dodger Stadium with more insight from those who knew him best. Rashawn.
Yeah, Darren, between the three of us, right, we could have filled up this entire half hour with some of our favorite Tommy memories. That's just who he was, right? He made you feel like you were a friend, and he held court. He told the best stories. Here are some great memories from those close to him.
There was a time that he actually motivated me by saying that, Bulldog, I need you to get these guys out in a hurry. I'm hungry, and the post-game spread is cooling.
In the minor leagues, he had a game with Schenectady when he struck out 25 batters. And the actual box score shows probably something like 18 walks and some wild pitches and things like that. But back in the day, when Tommy would tell the story, he could tell the story perfectly. So the lead to that story was 25 strikeouts.
I kind of made a promise to him that we would win it before he left us. And he said that he's going to stick around long enough to see us win a championship. So for him to make his way to Texas to be with us and to see it in person speaks to his determination, his stubbornness a little bit, his compete, all of that.
There was some very famous visits that didn't include me, especially the one like to Jesse Orozco, where he was trying to figure out the camera angles so that he could swear on the mound and people couldn't read his lips, because Vin Scully notoriously could read lips.
1954, he's called into Buzzy Bavasi's office, the general manager, and says, Tommy, we got to bump you. We've got to make room for another guy. I can't have 2 pitchers. And who's the other guy? Sandy Koufax. What would you do? And Tommy said, I'd send Koufax down. And even after all these years, after the 4 no-hitters, the perfect game, the Hall of Fame career by Sandy Koufax, Tommy still thinks that they made a mistake.
You know, we're all in God's time, and finally Tommy got the call up. I firmly believe he's starting tomorrow for the Brooklyn Dodger team, pitching to Campanella, and Hodges at first, and Robinson at second, and Reese at short.
I spoke with Dodgers historian Mark Langle, who you just saw there in the piece earlier today, and he shared with me a story about taking his 7-year-old nephew around Tommy Lasorda. And Tommy says, "I'm going to teach you the facts of life. When you take a photo, always stand in the middle so they can't crop you out." Tommy, in life and in baseball, was always standing in the middle, guys. We'll send it back to you.
That's a great, I mean, those are some great stories. Thank you very much, Rashawn. You know, we're sitting here, we're talking about Tommy. It's a joyous occasion to remember all that he contributed to life and to baseball, and he is sorely going to be missed. What's your favorite story?
I mean, there's
so
some
many
classic baseball stories. The Dave Kingman story, of course, the Vegas tape, and the Kurt Bavacqua. But mine's a personal story. My boys were 6 and 7, and they were the kids that got to run out in the field, you know, at the start of the game and run to first base or second base to get an autograph. So Tommy sees me down on the field. I'm there. We got 3 little kids running around all over the place. And he's like, "Steve, where are you going to be sitting for the game?" I said, "Tommy, they got us some really good seats." "No, we're not going to let you. I want you up in my box." "My box? I mean, you don't have to do that, Tom." And he goes, No. Here, take Steve up to the box up there. And so he had like one of the press boxes right up there. And not only did he allow us to sit up there, which was good when you have 3 little kids trying to corral them, but he came up and he personalized the thing. He was a very special man. I'm telling you right now, he was a special man who had an incredible passion for life. And I thought it was said right. He willed himself. Oral Hershiser said it. He willed himself to live as long as he did. He wanted to see the Dodgers win one more World Series before he passed from this earth, and he got it done.
Yeah, he was an all-time great. He was an iconoclast. You know,
Yeah.
He just was amazing, and we are certainly going to miss him. Thank you for watching. We'll miss you, Tommy.